Welcome to Titles, Talk, and Tipples. I'm your host, Jude Matulich-Hall, and with me today is Suzanne Madron, author of The Cat with Cthulu Eyes, The Watershed, and For Sale or Rent. Welcome, Suzanne.
Thank you. Great to be here. I warn you now, it's my third one, so.
Okay, that's quite all right. So what are we drinking tonight?
Tonight, it is limoncello with some fruity flavored seltzer water.
Nice. All right.
Yeah, it's very refreshing.
Yeah, and it's the first time I've had it, so it is actually really good. So let's cheers.
Cheers.
Salut.
Grazie.
So go for it. Tell me about some of your influences.
Well, as you know, I think with Cat with Cthulhu Eyes and stuff like that, Lovecraft was a big influence, but also Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
Really huge influence. Ray Bradbury, Anne Radcliffe, Mary Shelley. Wow, where to keep going? There's so many influences that it's hard. Like in high school, I discovered Gothic literature, like classic, original Gothic literature from the 1700s, and I just fell in love with it. You know, it's like the origins of horror.
Yeah,
and I loved it because you never quite knew where it was going to go, what was going to happen. It was like all those ghost stories kind of going on in a time when, you know, you had like Pride and Prejudice and stuff like that. And then there was, of course, Wuthering Heights. So the Bronte sisters were a huge influence as well. Mm-hmm. So add all that together along with modern day horror and Lovecraft, mix it into a lovely drink, and that is my inspiration.
And that is this show.
It makes a lovely, refreshing drink.
You know, it's really funny that you bring that up because it was back in high school that I discovered. I mean, I was always influenced by the Twilight Zone and Ray Bradbury Theater and Alfred Hitchcock Presents, you know, because my grandpa used to just watch all of those, and we didn't have cable, but he did. And so, you know, they would have marathons. And so there'd be like days where I would just, for hours, have all this creepy stuff pouring into my brain.
Binge watching.
Right. Right. Binge watching before there was binge watching, except we had to sit through commercials.
Yes. That was the time to get up and go to the bathroom, grab a snack.
Get a snack.
You had exactly 2 minutes to go and do all of that.
And I just recently pulled out a book that I still have from high school. It was this hardback book called Vampires. And it's like vampire stories through the ages from like the very big, you know, first vampire story, Varney the Vampire. And I don't think that was the first vampire story, but, you know, and
it.
Huh?
I think Polidori might have been the first one.
Polidori, okay. Yeah. That one might be in there. I mean, nice.
Like if we want to go even further back, I think the first official vampire story was ancient Greece with the Lamia or Lamia. Yeah. I always pronounce her name Lamia, and that's because it's a character in my book.
Oh, I see. And the one you're talking about, I think I've always pronounced it Lamia.
Yeah.
But how did you pronounce it?
Initially, I misread it because I don't speak Greek.
What do you mean you don't speak Greek? Everybody speaks Greek.
I'm teaching myself Spanish with Duolingo right now. I speak a barely working Italian now that there's nobody left to speak it with. Same with my French; it's fading. Yeah. So Greek is one of those ones that, you know, it's on my list to learn, but I haven't gotten there yet.
Well, it's all Greek to me, so. Oh, that was a bit
good one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers. Jokes will just get funnier from here.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, and so it was just great revisiting this book because it was like my Bible, you know. And then I started reading the novels, you know, Dracula and Frankenstein. And Invisible Man, all those. And it's so fantastic. I really do still enjoy reading that older stuff because they weren't really worried about having it too exciting and having too much stuff happening. Like some things now, it's just like overload. I mean, it was like, you really just got a sense of the environment and the characters and
the atmosphere.
Yeah.
There was a lot of atmosphere. Because, I mean, think about it. You've got a captive audience. They're not going anywhere. They're not doing anything. So you've got time to world build. You don't have to worry about the marketing.
Right.
Yeah. A 30-second attention grab. You don't have to worry about it. You got days.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure, like, it wasn't like they had bookstores with thousands of books in them. I mean, people were waiting for books to come out.
They were the penny dreadful days. So they had like these little chapbooks coming out, and they'd release, I think, one a week.
Yeah.
And just
you had to make it last a week.
The original Varney the Vampire, I think, was something like 700 pages.
Oh my. I didn't realize that.
And it was awful. I mean, it was just awful. Like, there was no editing. It was just literally like somebody off the street was just like, here, have a vampire novel in 700 pages. And they just published it. And they were just like, here you go. And I read it and I was like, do I keep reading? I'm 200 pages in and I've seen so many Swiss cheese plot points that it's just like, oh goodness, like somebody shot this through with buckshot and put it back together.
Did you actually finish it or no?
I didn't. No, it's still on my Kindle.
Yeah, some things, and that's the thing too, is they didn't have the movie theaters and this and that and the other. And so that was the entertainment. And the writers could really just go for it. I mean, there were no standards. I'm sure there were standards, but, not everybody had the privilege of standards.
Standards being, are you a guy?
Oh, yeah. Are you white? Are you a white guy? We'll publish you.
Yes, because even the Bronte sisters published under pseudonyms.
Right, Mary Shelley. They all thought it was her husband that made it.
Yep.
What was his name again?
Percy, wasn't it? Percy Disc?
Yeah. I was just kidding.
Oh, I'm not. I have goldfish brains. So I'm like, thanks.
Percy Byron Shelley.
There you go.
Huge poet, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
the Bronte sisters were Kerr, Acton, and Ellis Bell.
Yeah. There were lots of writers that were writing under their brother's name or their father's name or their husband's name.
Oh, well, it was unseemly for a woman, 1, to be able to read, and 2, be able to write, 3, try to publish a book. What?
Oh, scandal.
Hold on. The pearls, they are clutched. Yeah, and I mean, that gets left out of history a lot. That there were just so many female writers that published under male pseudonyms. And even to this day, I published an entire series under the name James Glass. Mm-hmm. And it was fantastic. It did great. Hit #1 on Amazon and everything.
Oh, nice.
And then I published the 3rd book under Suzanne Madron, and crickets.
Oh my goodness. That's this day and age, folks. Come on. Get with it.
What?
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah. I did an author meet and greet at a local coffee shop, and like the running joke, because by book 2 I had come out, I guess, as the male author, and so people were like, you tried to trick us. I'm like, oh no, honey, I did.
Yeah.
there's no tried.
I did.
And I had people claim that I had plagiarized the book from, this fictional author that I made up.
Oh my goodness.
And I'm like, no, seriously, like literally, it's all on my hard drive. Do you want to see it? Like, here's the dates and everything. And here's the document with my name on it, like. So I go to this author meet and greet, this book club, and I walk in, and I guess somebody, like a few people, didn't read their email before they showed up, because the person organizing it did say, oh, by the way, James Glass is Suzi. And so I show up, and I'm sitting there, And people were kind of looking at me like, who are you?
You're the secretary, right?
Yeah, well, I was the secretary, I was the girlfriend, I was his publicist, I was his agent.
Everything.
And obviously he wasn't showing up.
Oh.
And I was like, no, I'm him. So, I had one woman who was really upset about that. And apparently after that, she decided she didn't like the book. And she told me repeatedly how much she hated the book and how she had read the whole thing just to make sure she hated it.
Oh.
And then tried to get her money back.
That's what you do. That's what you do when you hate a book.
Yeah, and then she tried to get her money back.
That happens to people all the time, though. I see it on reviews and everything. And there's actually little book trolls that go around and they just give bad reviews on stuff they've never read.
Yeah.
Or like that. They read the whole thing just to be.
And then try to get their money back after. It's like, and I told her, I was like, lady, that's like trying to get your money back after you ate the whole steak. Not happening. If it was that bad, stop eating it.
Right. And I mean, like how much is a book nowadays? $15 tops, unless you're buying a hardback.
Oh no. I mean, like mine, it was all Kindle sales that they had done. So it was cheap. And at that point I had kept my Kindle sales like really cheap, like $1.99.
Oh yeah.
If not less, because I'm like, I get it. I'm on a budget too. And I don't like spending, $10 for a book that's electric. Yeah. And, so yeah, I was just like looking at this lady, like, do you want your dollar back? Seriously? Is that what you're asking for? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, you're not getting it. I was like, no.
Good for you. Good for you.
I was like, I'm not giving you $1 back. In fact, I'm using your dollar to buy myself coffee right now.
There you go.
And the group was just like, because they thought like I was going to be really upset about it. And I was like, no, man. I was like, she's my new favorite person. I'm going to send her Christmas cards. I was like, what's your address? I was like, you are officially on my Christmas list. I am sending you cards.
Wow.
I was like, in fact, I'm sending you all the books.
For free.
With a kiss.
I know. So how has it panned out for you since then? How long ago was that? And how long?
That was years. That was a few years. Sales have been steady, but nowhere near what they were when I was writing as James Glass.
Yeah.
And it was interesting too, because the reviews that I was getting when people thought I was Guy were just scathing. And, like if they were bad reviews, but a lot of reviews were also like, wow, this is the best thing ever, hard-boiled noir fiction, amazing. So yeah, so since then it's been, it's been steady sales and stuff like that, but the reviews have been better, but not as
really good reviews.
Yeah.
I only looked at the reviews for rent, for sale or rent, and I think there was only one bad review.
Yeah, people that don't realize it's a short story, like it's a long short story, it's like a novella. Yeah. They tend to get very bent out of shape. That like, oh, I paid $1 for this, and I'm like,
it took me a year to, novella probably didn't take you that long to write, but that's always what I want to say to people when like, oh my gosh, you want how much for a book, and it's like. Yeah, you know what? My first book, when it comes out, is probably going to be about $15. It took me 4 years to write it, a year to find a publisher, and it'll be, by the time it gets published, it'll be 2 months shy of 6 years.
Yeah, I feel your pain, man. My first novel took 13 years from start to finish, because I wrote it in high school in my senior year. And it took me 9 months to write the original draft, which was the suck.
Of course it was. You're an
I rewrote that book for 13 years.
Which one is that?
That's Nemesis.
Oh.
It's the first book in the Immortal War series. So Nemesis, Lamaya, and the Tower were the first 3 books in the series, and each one of them took 13 years from start to finish.
Wow.
Fun tidbits about the writing process.
Yeah.
God in a House of Crosses and Scylla took considerably less time, and at that point, you know, I'd worked with so many editors and I was in the flow. I got it, like what to do in that first draft. So by the time it hit the editor, they were like, there's nothing. Like there's a few tweaks here and there, but otherwise there's nothing.
Yeah.
So
that was the great thing about my first novel, is like all I had to change was the beginning. Like, you know, and just, it was like, I think a page, 2 pages, maybe, you know, maybe 3, I don't know. But yeah, and I'm actually doing the copy edit on that novel right now to be released in October. And
congrats.
Thank you. I'm so excited. Oh my gosh. You know, it's like you want summer to last. I mean, I want summer to last, but I'm like, oh, October can't get here fast enough.
I feel exactly the same way. Just so I can announce like the big news that's coming down the pike for October. So I'm like, you know, it's October. Everybody loves October. Well, any horror fans love October.
It's not too hot. It's not too cold. Halloween, you know.
Halloween, yeah.
You can't go wrong with Halloween.
You can't. I love it. I love October. It's one of my favorite months.
Yeah, and I did actually do a couple places a rewrite. Just slight, not like pages and pages of a rewrite, but like a paragraph here or there that I was like, ooh, I really don't like this, after, you know, taking 6 months off from looking at it. You know, it's been or maybe it's been 9 months since I looked at it. And to look at it again after going over it over and over, you know, it's been interesting. The copy edit's been interesting.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, with Nemesis, Lamaya, and the Tower, I significantly rewrote them. Nemesis especially, because the original draft was 180 pages, I think, because it was 90 pages single spaced typed, and I had written the entire thing in a notebook first. And thank God I did, because my hard drive crashed in 2002, 2003. So all of my files went poof. So all of my novels were at least in part in actual physical notebooks. And I printed off Nemesis and Lamaya and the Tower, like the pieces that I typed up, I had printed them off. And all the stuff that I'd done in between. So from the time like I moved from Florida back up north, all of that was gone.
Wow.
And I was just like, oh, so many months of work gone. And I had to redo it. So while I was redoing it, I was reading it, and I'm like, this reads like high school angst, and I need to rewrite this.
But the main idea stayed firm.
Right? Oh yeah,
the plot and
and
characters.
Well, the characters, both of the characters actually changed considerably, because initially Nemesis was just psychotic. I mean, he was just absolutely violent, absolutely crazy, and Lamaya was just kind of this pushover, and I hated it. You know, I was just like, I was like, that's high school me. So,
well, and you know, it's like the lesson that we learn as writers as we get older is that characters need to be rounded. Like, evil characters aren't 100% evil, and good characters aren't 100% good. They've got to have some gray, and so to bring that rounding to the characters is super important. Whereas in high school, everything's black and white.
Even back then, Nemesis was always kind of a gray anti-hero. You know, like, he just was what he was. He was like a panther. He was what he was. Not necessarily evil, not necessarily good, just there and existing. So when I rewrote everything, by the time I got to Scylla, the characters had actually evolved and gotten a lot more depth. Lamaya became stronger. Nemesis became more, I don't know, even keeled, I guess, like less completely one way or the other. His polarities centered by then. And then just kind of fought back, you know, against all the things that were, because the funny thing is, I had sent it in when I was 18. I sent it to an agent in New York. I mean, and it was the days pre-internet, so I printed it off.
Oh yeah.
I put the cover letter on it. I put it in an envelope, and I sent the 3 chapters to an agent in New York. I got a very nice handwritten letter back saying it's too violent for a love story, but your writing is fantastic.
Oh wow.
And I was like, what part of vampire horror said love story?
Right. Well, I mean, that's the conclusion that people jump to, I think, when you have a male character and a female character
and a woman writing it. So
yeah. I mean, I've done it too. I've done it too. There's a little bit of a romance in it's not a romance, but there is a relationship that blooms in my, oops, spoiler. Well, I'm sure people will figure that out anyway. Maybe. Yeah,
it's pretty obvious, like within obviously the first 3 chapters of the book, that there's some sort of connection going on between Lamaya and Nemesis. But it turns into like weird love quadrilateral kind of thing going on. And, and so anybody that reads the books, a fun Easter egg is Lamaya's house in New York. She lives in an old desanctified church. If you're paying attention, that same house is also the Hanging Cages Club, and it's also located exactly where the Limelight used to be.
Oh, nice.
Anybody paying attention will recognize that church in New York and be like, wait a minute. Yeah. I hung out there in the 90s.
That's great.
I miss that place. That was a cool place.
So another story, and I actually just read it, is For Sale or Rent. And that was a fun little, I was not expecting the end. We don't want to give out spoilers or anything, but yeah, I was a little shocked by the end. I was like, oh, well, yeah. And it's interesting because I tried to, I had submitted it around, and the first person that I had submitted it to, it clocked in at about 2,000 words. And the editor for that anthology was like, I love the idea, but you cut it short, and it shows. And he goes, and you cut it short for this anthology. He goes, just write it and see where it goes. Nice.
I was like, okay. So, and, he gave me a lot of pointers, kind of mentored me in a way. And we worked together on it. And, it came out to be what it is today. And I think it's now like 10 or 12,000 words. Yeah. So, yeah, I cut it a little short. But when I tried to submit it again to another anthology, the editor for that one was like, this doesn't make any sense the way it ends. Rewrite it. Make it end like this. And I was like, but it's Lovecraftian. It doesn't have to make sense. Like, that's the whole point, is that it doesn't make sense, that you can't explain it.
Well, I mean, come on, we're dealing with monsters here. So yeah. I feel like the ending, it's not that the ending didn't make sense at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it made sense. I mean, she had a dream, and these things, these monsters were there, and
yep.
And there was that feeling of, I'm trying not to give stuff away, of course,
I mean, the dread was real.
yeah, and there was this feeling of, she received a warning from one of the creatures, right? Yes, that something was going to happen, and it did happen. So that was kind of, that showed up a few times throughout the story. So for it to go where it went it makes complete sense to me.
Yeah. So. It made sense to me too. It made sense to the editor, who was like, write the whole thing. This other editor was more interested in wrapping it up in a bow so that it was more mainstream.
Oh, and like
but it's not
happy ending. Kind of. Yeah.
As happy as horror gets, I guess. And that's kind of the thing with my writing. It doesn't always end with a happy ending, because it's horror.
Right.
Like, sometimes horror is just horror,